Peace, peace. It's your guy. Hold on, let me. Do I may have to turn. Hold on. Turn this light down. All right. It's your guy, young Eli, my lord. However you choose to address me, all the same thing. This is part 2 of the history of the religion. I'm not gonna go and promote my products and my website and all of that because I already did that in part 1. So we're just continuing on. So the reason why I'm even showing these pre-dynastic gods, right, is for the simple fact that look at the dates. These dates predate the Mesopotamian civilization, as they were saying, right? We was going back to 5000 BC, and then most of the significance was 4000 BCE. So I just wanted to show this because a lot of people are not privy to this information. But again, it's here so you can look it up for yourself. This is why all you got to do is worldhistory.org or Google Neef World History. Whatever you see here, you can just look it up, right? So Neef is what? She was a war goddess of creation, mother goddess who invented birth, and funerary goddess who cared for and helped to dress the souls of the dead, right? 6000 BC. So we talked about before a Set, right? Her cult also dealing with Bat, of course. But her cult center was at Sais in the Nile Delta, and she continued as the most popular goddess of Lower Egypt even after her tributes were largely given to Isis and Hathor, right? Or Set and Hathor. And those goddesses became more popular in Egypt. Neff continued to be honored as a patron god of the Sais throughout Egypt's history, and she was considered a great protector of the people of the land and the most effective mediator between humanity and God. Right? She have been present at the creation of the world, and in some stories, even the creator herself, who gave birth to Atum, right, or Ra, who then completed the act of creation, which is the duality, right? Man and woman, male and female. It ain't no one. And if it's 3, that's because the third is the damn offspring. But yeah, with that being said, we're gonna continue on. So now we're going to deal with where we at? Who is this over here? Satis? I think this is Satis. Yeah. Setet. Satis. 6000 BCE. See that? She is another older goddess. And this is saying she, right? So as you had, a whole bunch of male figures, you also have females. It ain't like how they be trying to depict it as motherfuckers was male worshippers and homosexuals and shit like that. As you can see, that was not the case. This light is... I think I gotta get a new light. I may have to get a new light. You know what? I'm gonna cut it off anyway. Oh! Oh! Alright. So, Egyptian kings and deities had a relationship of mutual dependency. The pharaoh needed to bless and affirm his rule, while the gods relied on the god of the king. They relied on the king to build their temples and maintain their cults. Their interdependence is reflected in such seemingly simple scenes as this back-to-back depiction of Sebekhotep III offering Nepset vessels containing water to the goddesses Anuket and Setet, both of Anuket on the right and Setet on the left, both of whom had their cult centers in Aswan. In return of the king's attention, the goddesses present him with the uncsans symbolizing life. The block originally formed in the back of the small shrine It was observed on Sea Hill Island, south of Aswan, in the early 19th century, but was subsequently used as a millstone, resulting in a circular hole in the center. So, when you look at this tablet here, right? It looks like what? It reminds me of Aquarius, right? A pail of water. Because there's water in these vessels. That's what it says. So, continuing on, we got Serket, right? Serket was also 6,000 BCE. The great mother goddess, right? The scorpion. I want to kind of keep this short. So since I'm already giving this presentation out, basically you'll be able to look for yourself. But Sekhet, another female deity, 6,000 BCE, right? She is associated with healing, magic, and protection, and her name means she who causes the throat to breathe, right? Her symbols was a scorpion, the Ankh, and was a scepter of all, which convey her benevolent aspects. So, the scorpion and the Ankh. There's a lot of deities with the scorpion that came after. And then here is Thought, right? Or Jehuti, right? The god of writing and wisdom, truth and integrity. One of the most important deities in the Egyptian pantheon, worshipped from the pre-dynastic period. My mistake. I think I said earlier that Heka and Jehuti didn't exist together, but they do. 6,000 BCE to 3150 BCE on the Ptolemaic dynasty. Yeah, on the Ptolemaic dynasty, the last to rule Egypt. He was probably originally a lunar god, son of Atum-Re or Atum-Ra, but later texts represent him as the son of Heru. Thought is depicted in some texts as a baboon, but mostly as a man with the head of an ibis holding a writing implement. It kind of reminds me of the Lion King. He's always said Simba was Heru, Mufasa was Osar, and Simba's mother was Aset. And now saying that Zazu or whatever his name was, not Zazu, I forgot the baboon's name, right? But the baboon that anoints Simba, right? The Jesus, right? He anoints him. He spreads this thing on his forehead. That now, so he was Thought. It makes sense. He was wise, a wise man, right? So he was also a record keeper. He was known as Lord of Time and Reckoner of Years because he marked the passage of time, and through the powerful magic of his divine knowledge of words gave the king a long reign so he could maintain order on earth, right? What else? I just wanted to make sure we were streaming because before I get too far. Or else we can go over here because these basically all saying the same things. In the myth of Asar, Thought protected Aset during her pregnancy and healed the eye of her son, Heru, which he had been wounded by Asar's adversary, Set. He weighted the hearts of the deceased at their judgment and reported the result to the preceding god, Asar, and his fellow judges. Thought's sacred animals was the ibis and the baboon. Millions of mummified bodies of those animals had been found in cemeteries near Hermopolis and Memphis. Thought was usually represented in human form with the ibis head. The Greeks identified Thoth with the god Hermes and termed him Thought the thrice great, or Hermes Trismegistus, right? And, which was an important philosophical works were attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. So everything from Hermes in the Greek pantheon actually comes from the ancient Egyptian or ancient Kemet, right? Kemetian. So going over here, Thought is the Egyptian, or Jehuti. Tahuti is the Egyptian god of writing, magic, wisdom, and the moon. This is where you also get with the baboon. Baku Ajumu, or Ajumu Baku, he's an archaeologist. He talks about the baboon worshiping the moon and how it stands up and it's erect, right, when the moon is full and so forth, and it's like in a trance and whatnot, and it looks like it's worshiping the moon. So he was one of the most important gods of the ancient Egyptian, alternatively said to be self-created or born of the seed of Heru from the forehead of Set. As the son of these two deities, you see how the information kind of like contradicts itself. He was born, he was alive before Heru, but he was also a seed of Heru. So he was also god of the equilibrium. In this regard, he was also associated closely with both the principle of Ma'at and the goddess, which is divine balance, and the goddess Ma'at, who personified this principle and who was sometimes as his wife. Another of his consorts was the goddess Nahimtawi. She who embraces those in need, a protector goddess. In his form as An, Thought presided over the judgment of the dead with Asar in the hall of truth, and those souls who feared they might not pass through the judgment safely were encouraged to call upon Thought for help. Right? Sounds familiar. Call upon Jesus for help and repent your sins so you can get into the gates of heaven. Yeah, the consort the consort most often associated with Thought was Sahat, goddess of writing, the keeper of books and patron, goddess of libraries and librarians, who alternatively his wife or daughter. Worship of Thought began in Lower Egypt, most likely in the pre-dynastic period 6000 BCE, right, and continued all the way to the Ptolemaic period, when Ptolemaic is where you get what's his name? Then we're gonna get to him anyway because he's part of the Jesus story. So this right here is Imhotep, right? Imhotep. Why I put him after Thought or Jehuti, and also where Heka is because Imhotep is the father of medicine, right? He actually taught what's his name? Hippocrates, right? Even though he didn't teach him like per se, but all the information that Hippocrates got is from Imhotep. Imhotep was healing over hundreds of diseases thousands of years before Hippocrates came into the picture, right? And it even says it right here. He was the Egyptian polymath, best known as the architect of King Dozer's step pyramid at Saqqara. His name means he who comes in peace. He is, which is why they say Imhotep or Hotep. He is also the name. He is also the only Egyptian besides Imhotep to be fully deified. Amenhotep. In time, he became the god of wisdom and medicine. Imhotep was a priest, advisor to King Dozier, a poet, physician, mathematician, astronomer, and architect. Although his step pyramid is considered his greatest achievement, he is also remembered for his medical treatise, right? Which regarded disease and injury as naturally occurring instead of punishment sent by gods or inflicted by spirits or curses, which is what we read a little bit earlier with Heka. So he was deified by the Egyptians in 525 BCE, which is what we know as the Ptolemaic period, right? And he was equated with the demigod of healing, Aeschylus, by the Greeks. His works were still extremely popular and influential during the Roman Empire, and the emperors Tiberius and Claudius of the Flavian dynasty, both had their temples inscribed with the praise of the benevolent god Imhotep. And also, I think, I got it in here too. I'm not even going to say it. So here we go. Medical contributions. None of this really has to do anything with religion, but more so as far as all of this has to do with showing the inspirations, the foundations that Africa has laid for religion and everything else that we have, technology and so forth, our information, period. So, medical contributions. Imhotep was practicing medicine and writing on the subject 2,200 years before Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, was born. He is generally considered the author of Edwin Smith Papyrus, an Egyptian medical text which contains over 100 anatomical terms and describes 48 injuries and their treatments. The text may have been a military field manual and dates to 1600 BCE, long after Imhotep's time, but is thought to be a copy of his earlier work. Right? And as you see here, this is the Hippocratic Oath. I got the Hippocratic Oath from two different sources, the National Institute of Health and also the McCullough Scholars Pre-Medical Institute. So as you see right here highlighted on the left, it says, I swear by Apollo, which is the Roman god, the physician, and Aesculapius, which is the Greek god, the surgeon, likewise Hygia and Panaceia, and the call the gods and goddesses to witness that I will observe and keep his underwritten oath, the utmost of my power and judgment. I will reverence my master who taught me the art. Right? Now, when they talk about, again, Elapius, they're talking about Imhotep. But because, again, you know, they're not going to give credit to Africa, of course. They give credit to the Greeks. That's why they give credit to Homer and everybody else who came after the great minds that came before them, who Homer and all of them learned from, right? Hippocrates, Herodotus, all of them, right? Even Aristotle learned from all of the Egyptians. So that being said, they didn't give them the credit. But as you see, they are the influence. So this is Elapius, right? Look at his staff. Look like a caduceus, right? The caduceus is Thoth's. That's Tahuti, Jehudis. This is his staff, right? So, you know, obviously they were influenced by the information and the miraculous, information, of course, where they used it. They were influenced and they used it for their own civilizations. I'm not going to read all into this, but you can look him up. As you see, this is the encyclopedia. There's more information besides the encyclopedia where you can find his information at. So now this is going into the religion. The inspiration for the religion. This is Amenemop, right? Now, he was an ancient Egyptian author of the instruction of Amenemop, probably composed during the late kingdom of 1300 to 1075 BCE. Now, the main reason why I have this in here, because it says, in particular, many parallels have been drawn between the form and content of portions of Amenemop's work in the Hebrew Book of Proverbs. Although the nature and the interrelationship between the two have long been debated, some scholars have argued that the Book of Proverbs is dependent in some part upon Amenemop's works, while others have argued the reverse, being biased, probably Christian apologists. Still, others have suggested their linkage to a common earlier work or surmised that their similarities derived indirectly from comparable linguistic and other circumstances. So here's an example. The sayings of the wise, 22:17 to 24:22 Proverbs, consist of longer units or sayings introduced by a preface. The most distinctive feature of this section is its close relationship to a piece of Egyptian writing. The instructions of Amenemop. I gotta figure out how to pronounce his name. Amenemop, right? Or Amenemope. I think it's Amenemope. This is a fucking tongue twister. Which has been dated within the broad limits of 1000 to 600 BCE. The Hebrew author apparently used this work as a model. The Egyptian work comprises 30 chapters and the Hebrew text refers to its 30 sayings. And as one of the sources in its compiling, his own anthology. An additional collection of 4 wise sayings, Proverbs 24:23 to 34, forms of a supplement to the sayings of the wise. The second collection of Proverbs of Solomon, chapters 25 to 29. By the way, Solomon never existed, right? Even Harem Abiff, a lot of these Freemasons try to say existed. All of that is myth. Consists of 128 sayings that closely resemble the earlier collection, which is of the instructions of Amenemope. Although quatrains as well as couplets are included, the scribes of Hezekiah's court circa 700 BCE are credited with assembling this collection. So here on archive.org, you can see this is the source. They took a picture of it from the book. This is the book of the Legacy of Egypt by S.R.K. Glanville. Right here, starting at the bottom, you see Proverbs, and then you see the comparison of the teachings of Amenemope, right? So it says what? Proverbs, incline thine ear and hear my words, and apply thine heart to apprehend. The teaching of Amenemope, give thine ear and hear what I say, and apply thine heart to apprehend. Right now, they didn't say thine, of course, because that's some Roman antics. But all in all, if you look at the Proverbs and you look at the comparison of the translation of the teachings of the instructions of the Amenemope, you will see that it actually is plagiarized. We're not going to say it was adopted. It was plagiarized. That's how real it is. I'm fucking got water coming up, but it's plagiarized. And I got both pages right here. You can pause this and you can read them for yourself, or when I put up the presentation for download, go download that. Here is what the obelisk, right? What is in Egypt or Kemet, right, is a phallus. Now Hebrew Israelites, the nigger Israelites, right, Negro Israelites, whatever, the nigger brews, they motherfuckers say that the Africans were phallus worshippers, or the Kemits were phallus worshippers. They worship the penis, which is far from the truth. It's just the penis brings in life, just like the vagina. Look at what the Vatican got, right? The Vatican obelisk in the St. Peter's Square, right in the middle. And guess what? At a certain point in time, due with the sun, because all of this stuff is strategically built, right? With the sun, it looks like when people are coming through this pathway coming into St. Peter's Square, they look like seeds, like semen. And this is the ovula, right? The circle is the vagina. The beginning is the opening. So it gets a little sexual, but they hide that, of course. But yeah, so as you see right here, located in St. Peter's Square, the Vatican obelisk was bought from Heliopolis during the reign of Caligula, right? And then going down, it has with dedications to Divius Augustus and Tiberius, overlying partially erased inscriptions of Cornelius Gallus on opposite faces at the base of the shaft, right? It was standing the Forum Julium at Alexandria around 30 BC, which is Jesus' time, right? When he died, around the time he died, 30 BC, 33 BC, what they say, or 33, I think it was 30, yeah, 30 BC. It required actually no, AD. I'm sorry, my fault. He died 30 AD, 33 AD, whatever they say. But it required a specific, specially built ship to transport it from Egypt, which was later sunk to make the foundation of one of the breakwaters of the Claudian part of the Portus Augusti and the lighthouse built on it. So more of this obelisk, as you can see, it's coming from Kemet, right? Karnak. Then you can also see it again, St. Peter's Square. You see Cleopatra's Needle. Actually, this right here, this on the left at the bottom, that's in Central Park. You see it right there, centralparknyc.org. This is right here, history.org. This is where? Washington, D.C., as we know. So, yeah, I mean, you know, again, the influence is real. And then here we go here. Look at top left corner. The original of Ma'at, right? Of the Nile, or what they call Hapi, ancient Kemet. And then look, the carbon copy of, or the plagiarized version, which is Lady Liberty, right? And then you got hold on, let me make sure. Yeah, so then over here you see Islam, Muslim, right? You see what they doing here on the right side in Kemet on the walls. Same thing as you see on the left with this Muslim, right? Maybe. And then over here, down on the left corner, right? The Black Madonna. You got Aset and Heru. Then you got the Black Madonna and whatever the fuck they was calling this guy at this time. But as you see behind them, this is when they start showing the sun. And then when you get over to Christianity with Mary and Jesus, then you see the sun behind them again, right? And then over here, right, you see the eagle. See the eagle. The eagle. My FaceTime camera popped up. Here we go. The eagle, the Kemetic ancient eagle, right? The influence. You can see the original, then you can see the copy. I mean, it's all there. It's in our face. Like I said, the information is there. It's just we don't be privy to it, so we don't know what's actually like going on, you know, unless you critically think and look for yourself. But the information is here. You're going to find it. Just got to go to the root. That's why we started from the root, the beginning. This is dealing with Asar, as you see here, right? This is one of the college institutes, their websites. And it's talk about Osiris, which is the Egyptian language name, transliterated from Asar, right? Is the Egyptian god of life, death, and fertility. He is called the All-Father. At the height of the ancient Nile civilization, Asar was regarded as a primary deity of henotheism. Osiris was not only the merciful judge of the dead in the afterlife, but also the underworld agency that granted all life, including sprouting and vegetation of the fertile flooding of the Nile River, right? And they show he was the father of Anubis, father of Heru. He was the first ram god. He was the first ram before Abraham, right? So, and we're going to get into Abraham too. Abraham, Brahmin, right? And then coming here to the Garden of Eden. So with the Garden of Eden, fall of humanity, I think actually you was supposed to put this up. Actually, no. I may have did this twice. Yeah, I did do this twice. So, fall of man, we already went through this, right? Garden of Eden showed all of this. So, basically, I guess I was just starting with going through the inspiration of the ancient civilizations and the influence on the belief systems, which is Judaism, Catholicism, Christianity, and Islam. So I'm going to delete this. I don't need this in my presentation. We already got that up there. So here's Nun. Nun is the oldest of the ancient Egyptian gods and the father of Re, the sun god, right? Nun means primeval waters. He is also represented the waters of chaos out of which Reatum began creation. We had read that earlier. Now, as you see here on the right, this is Nun. Look what Nun is doing, carrying civilization, right? He is the waters, though, the primeval waters. Look at over here on the left at the bottom. Noah's Ark, right? Now, under this inscription over here on one of the tombs on the right, at the bottom, you see the complete gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt by Richard H. Wilkinson, page 117, artwork from the Book of the Dead, right? This is Nun, god of the waters, chaos, lifts the Barku of the sun god Ra, represented by both the scarab and the sun disk, into the sky at the beginning of time. Sounds like Genesis, right? So going here, Utnapishtim, right? Utnapishtim was part of the Gilgamesh epic, right? This is where you get also your flood story from, besides Nun or Asar, right? You also get from later on in the Mesopotamian civilization. And here, Utnapishtim in the Babylonian Gilgamesh epic, survivor of the mythological flood, whom Gilgamesh consults about the secret of mortality, Utnapishtim was the only man to escape death. Sounds like Noah. Since having preserved human and animal life in the great boat he built. Sounds like Noah. He and his wife were deified by the god Enlil, who we read earlier. Utnapishtim directed Gilgamesh to a plant that would renew his youth, but the hero failed to return to his home to the city, to his home city. Now, what does it say? See Noah. Why does it say see Noah? Why does it say see Sudra, right? Because those are this is the influence for these stories. So now Ustra, right, was a rough counterpart to the biblical Noah. Is another part of the Mesopotamian religion. As a survivor of a God-sent flood, when the gods had decided to destroy humanity with the flood, the god Enki, Akkadian Ea, who did not agree with the decree revealed to Zarathustra, a man well known for his humility and obedience, Zarathustra did as Enki commanded him and built a huge boat, another huge boat, in which he successively rode out the flood. Afterwards, he prostrated himself before the gods, and as a reward for living a godly life, Zarathustra was given immortality. Then it says, "See Utnapishtim." So maybe this one was before the Epic of Gilgamesh. But then we go into the the flood with Noah. We already know about the flood, right? I just have this here to show you here at the bottom. It says on the left, the story of the flood has close affinities with Babylonian traditions and apocalyptic floods, in which Utnapishtim plays the part corresponding to that of Noah. These mythologies are the source of such features of the biblical flood story as the building and provisioning of the ark, its flotation and the subsidence of the waters, as well as the part played by the human protagonist. Who's the human protagonist? All right. And the biblical flood, why do they say the biblical flood? Because biblical is just mythical. Instead of saying mythical, they're going to say biblical. So, Tablet 11 of the Gilgamesh epic introduces Utnapishtim, who, like Noah, survived cosmic destruction by heeding divine instruction to build an ark. Right? So we're going to skip all of that because it's just talking about the similarities. But despite the tangible similarities of the Mesopotamian and biblical myths of the flood, the biblical story has a unique Hebraic perspective. In the Babylonian story, the destruction of the flood was the result of a disagreement amongst the gods. In Genesis, it resulted from the moral corruption of human history. Right? The primitive polytheism of the Mesopotamian versions, it is transformed in the biblical story into the affirmation of the omnipotence and benevolence of one of the righteous God. Again, following their survival, Utnapishtim and his wife are admitted to the circle of the immortal gods, but Noah and his family are commanded to undertake the renewal of history. So this right here is showing you, then even we drop down. Right here, 3 different themes may be traced in Genesis 9:20 to 27. First, the passage attributes the beginnings of agriculture and in the particular cultivation of the vine. To Noah, the second, it attempts to provide in the persons of Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, ancestors for 3 of the races of mankind, and had to account in some degree for their 3 historic relations. And third, by its censure of Canaan, it offers a veiled justification for the later Israelite conquest and subjugation of the Canaanites. Noah's drunkenness and the disrespect it provokes in his son Ham results in Noah's laying of a curse on Ham's son Canaan. The incident may symbolize the ethnic and social division of Palestine. The Israelites from the line of Shem will separate from their pre-Israelite population of Canaan, who will live in the subjugation of the Hebrews. A whole bunch of hoopla, a whole bunch of BS, right? Hold on, I need some more water. So, the line of Shemesh, right? Talk about Canaanites. Talk about how they broke away from them, right? So, this curse, by the way, this curse of Ham, they draw to it being a social division between Palestine and maybe the Aryans and the Dravidians, or it may not be, right? It may be something different, but of course they're gonna go to race, because this is why you have people identifying with certain people in the book of who they come from, So with that being said, here's Manu. This is one of the Hindu stories of their flood story, right? In the story of the Great Flood, Manu combines the characteristics of the Hebrew Bible figures of Noah, who preserved life from extinction in the Great Flood, and Adam, the first man. So I'm not going to read all that. You can pause it, read it for yourself, or you can, like I said, get the presentation when I drop it. This is Atlantis. Also another flood story. I'm just showing this here, so, for evidence that you can see. Atlantis was also another flood story that we know about, and it was the creation of who? Plato. Yeah. So, Eden, From Eden to Exile. This is a book by Eric H. Klein. As you see, National Geographic. They talk about more of Utnapishtim and their biblical and the similarities of the biblical story of Noah. So, if you want, you can look that book up. As you see, you can read it for yourself. If you want, pause it. I'm not reading all of this because I read so much already, and it's so much more we got to go through. We only at 60. So this is Ra, the sun, right? Ra, god of the sun and creator god, he was believed to travel across the sky in his solar bark, and during the night to make his passage in another bark through the underworld, where, in order to be born again for the new day, he had to vanquish the evil serpent Apopus or Apepe. As one of the creator of the gods, he rose from the ocean of chaos onto the primeval hill, creating himself, and then in turn engendering 8 other gods. right? Originally, most solar gods had falcon forms and was assimilated to Heru. By the 4th dynasty, however, Re had risen to his leading position. The influence on Re was spread from Heliopolis, which was the center of his worship. From the 4th dynasty, kings held the title of son of Re, son of God, and Re later became part of the throne name they adopt at Ascension as the father of Ma'at. Re was the ultimate source of right and justice in the cosmos. This is where you get your Yahweh from, or your God from, or your Hadad, or your Adad, or your Anu, right? Your sky god, because that's what he did. He traveled across the sky. This is Ma'at, right? Ma'at, we know is the daughter of Re, said to be, born as son of God at the beginning of the creation through the power of Heka. We already read about Heka, the magician, right? Ma'at also has, what is it? Ma'at has, what is the word? An adversary called Japhet. So I think, I'm not sure if I have Japhet in here. But Ma'at is, goddess of balance and peace and so forth. So there it is. Concept of Ma'at order was fundamental in Egyptian thought. The king's role was set Ma'at in place of Isfet or Asfet, which is disorder. Ma'at was crucial in human life and embraced notions in reciprocity, justice, truth, and moderation. Ma'at was personified as a goddess and a creator's daughter and received a cult of her own. Right? So this is also, again, where we get Lady Justice from, or what's the shit? I think it is Lady Justice, right? Lady Liberty, that they have for the law. The blonde chick with the blindfold over her face. So the negative confessions, or as we know as the 42 ideals of Ma'at, right? They call the negative confessions because it's coming from a book where they interpreted us people, our ancestors, as negative people. So that's why they call it the book of the dead, even though it's the book of forthcoming day and light, which is, as you see down here, the actual translation, right, of the work title is the book of coming forth by day. So check out the negative confessions, 42 sins, so forth, 42 ideals. This is where you get your commandments from, your 10 commandments, or your, I think it's 740 sins or some shit like that. I think I have it in here. But 42 ideals. Also, you got your 42 judges, right? You got the judges over here. I'm not reading through all of that, but you can see for yourself. This is, I think this is the Persian god, but you also can see this is influenced by Ma'at, right? See the wings, influenced by Ma'at. This is also the precursor to your Judaism. This is Zoroastrianism, I can't even. I think I butchered that one. Zoroastrianism, yeah. But this is, again, kind of like your Jesus figure. You see the sun behind him, behind his head. Zoroastrianism is an Iranian religious reformer. Well, actually, Zarathustra, right, or Greek Zoroaster, Iranian religious reformer and prophet, traditionally regarded as the founder of Zoroastrianism, right? And this is his concept of the one God, whom he referred to as Ahuda Mazda, right, where you get the Mazda cars from, or the wise Lord. His purported dualism, which is good and evil, which is, again, Ma'at, good and evil, Ma'at and Japhet or Isfet, right? So going down here, good and evil, talk about the dualism, talk about the whole Zoroastrianism and so forth. This is just more expounding on it. Then we going into here, more of where you get your 10 commandments from. But this also was coming from, again, 42 ideals of Ma'at. You got your code of Namu, or your code of Hammurabi, right? So these were your laws. I mean, it's all, again, you know, once you get to the root, you're able to like know how these things came about. So that's basically where we started from. We started from the root. We just falling down the line, baby, falling down the line. So now we going into the Judaism. I said 740. It's 613 commandments. The first 10 of the 613 commandments given by God to the Jewish people form the foundation of Jewish ethics. So these 632 commandments come from the Code of Hammurabi, but also comes from the good and evil of Zoroastrianism, but also comes from Ma'at, right? So you got the 613 commandments. We got that. And it goes down to the 10 commandments, right? Introduced by Moses on Mount Sinai after the Israelites escaped Egypt, which never happened. Exodus is a false story, never existed. Then we're gonna drop down because I'm just trying to go through this. Now we're gonna drop down into the Naphtha player, right? This is why I brought up. They said that the Mesopotamians is the innovators of time and the calendar and so forth, and now it's so far from the truth. The Naphtha player. This is astronomy.com. The world's first astronomical site was built in Africa and is older than the Stonehenge. The 7,000-year-old stone circle tracked the summer solstice and the arrival of the annual monsoon season. It is also the oldest known astronomical site on Earth. Right? It says these early calendars foretold the coming of spring, summer, fall, and winter down here. It helps civilizations track when to plant and harvest crops. What does that mean? It acted as a calendar and also as a clock. As you can see, kind of looks like a sundial, right? So where is this located? Located in Africa, the Naphtha player stands some 700 miles south of the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. It was built more than 7,000 years ago, making the Naphtha player one of the oldest stone circles in the world. And possibly Earth's oldest astronomical observatory. Anything else to read in this? No. So now the influence, as you can see, right? Looks like a clock. It's now the influence. We got the clock. But you also got what? This is the zodiac constellation, right? Also, like I brought up before, the sundial. But so the zodiac, right? Now, dealing with the zodiac is dealing with the Mesopotamians. So this is, again, going back to why we started with the Mesopotamians and being the influencers or innovators of these belief systems is look in the Bible. Maseroth, the definition, the Bible dictionary. Found only Job 38:32, 12 signs of the zodiac, right? And then over here, John 14:2. In the King James Version, it says what? In my father's house are many mansions. What do they call these things? Right? Where you see Naphtali, Asher, Gad, Reuben, Levi, and all of that. They call those houses in astrology, right? Astrology is based off of astronomy, right? Or cosmology and based off astronomy, so forth. But these are houses. So they be saying your moon, your sun, your rising, whatever is in these houses, which is what? Capricorn and Sagittarius, all this other shit. So as you see, they show from in my father's house are many mansions. They show you again different translations. In my father's house are there many abodes. In my father's house there are many dwelling places. Right? Can't run from that. So this is also to show that the Bible, right? These religions did not stray away from astrology. So when we talk about Jesus being the Pisces, and Mary being what is it? Was Mary she is a virgin, so a Virgo, right? Virginess. And I got that in here too. So going down, see more of Mazzaroth, right? Look at right here, 32. Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Right? Capricorn season, Leo season, Libra season. What we about to go into? Virgo season, right? Or canst thou guide Arcturus with his sons? So what this is what we're talking about here. This is astrology. This is why the Bible is esoteric, right? It's mythological, but it has esoteric and allegory. It's a whole bunch of hoopla. Then here's some more. Bible Hub, Mazzaroth, right? The 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 constellations of the zodiac. I mean, how many more definitions can we get? Is what it is. So when they talk about this in the Bible, that's what they're referencing. The zodiac. Canst thou bring forth the zodiac in his seasons? Which zodiac are they talking about? We don't know. We gotta, get the context from whatever this chapter was talking about, but I don't even care for it because it's mythological. Virgo, right? A zodiacal constellation on the celestial equator that lies due to south of the handle of the Big Dipper, and is pictured as a woman holding a spike of grain. The sixth sign of the zodiac in astrology, right? One born under the sign of Virgo. Then you drop down here, the word history. Etymology. Etymology is just the study of words, the history of words, going to the root, the origin of what that word meant. And what did it mean? Literally virgin. This is why over here we got the Virgin Mary, right? And with the fish, Jesus is, the Pisces, the fish. So Heru. Talk about Heru, because now we get into Jesus a little bit. So Heru is an ancient Egyptian religion, in ancient Egyptian religion, a god in the form of a falcon whose right eye was the sun or morning star, right? That's what they call Jesus, representing power and quintessence, in whose left eye was the moon or evening star, representing healing. Falcon cults, which were in evidence from the late pre-dynastic times, were widespread in Egypt, right? So they call Heru what? Heru the child, Heru of the horizon, right? He was closely associated with the sun god. He is also the son of Set, or son of Isis, right? Says it here. Jesus, Revelations 22:16. I Jesus have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. And that is the right eye was the sun or the morning star of who? Heru. Going back to, again, who is this? Heru. When we get to later times, who is that? Jesus. So, this is, like I said, all of this stuff is like elementary, because the information is just here. It's just put all the information together. Don't be biased about your research. Research everything. So now we're going into the Hyksos, right? The foreign rulers. So the Hyksos invasion, the Hyksos, the people who inspired this Exodus story, right? Their dynasty of the Palestinian origin that ruled northern Egypt at the 15th dynasty. The name Hyksos was used by the Egyptian historian Manetho, who, according to Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, who flourished 1st century CE, translated the words as king shepherds or captive shepherds. Josephus himself wished to demonstrate the great antiquity of the Jews and thus identified the Hyksos with the Hebrews of the Bible. Hyksos was in fact probably an Egyptian term for the rulers of foreign lands and is almost certainly designated to the foreign dynasties rather than ethnic groups. Modern scholarship has identified most of the Hyksos kings as Semitic. Right, so when we talking about a lot of dynasties in Egypt, right, because you got to pay attention to this here. Palestinian origin that ruled northern Egypt as the 15th dynasty, 1630 to 1523 BCE. Remember those dates, by the way, because we're going to get through all this. But this is the interpretation or the depiction of the Red Sea. The splitting of the Red Sea, the blood, right? This is the infiltration of these people mixing in with the people of the land. They're taking over. So we're going to get more into that. So right here, we talk about the Hyksos arrival, but before then, the second intermediate period, 1782, 1570, which is the era following the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, 2040 to 1782 BCE. I'm gonna slow down a little bit. And presiding the New Kingdom. As with all historical designations of the eras of Egyptian history, the name was coined by 19th century CE Egyptologists to demarcate time periods in Egypt's history. The name was not used by ancient Egypt. Right, so this era is marked by a divided Egypt with the people known as the Hyksos holding power in the north, right? Egyptian rule at Thebes in the center of the country and Nubians ruling in the south. As with the first intermediate period of Egypt, this time is traditionally characterized as chaotic, lacking in cultural advancements and lawless. But as with the earlier periods, this claim has been discredited. The second intermediate period of Egypt was a time of disunity, and records of the time are confused or missing. But it is not as dark a time as later Egyptian writers claim, right? So the period begins as Egyptian rulers of the 13th dynasty moved the capital in Lower Egypt near Lish, south of Memphis, back to Thebes, the older capital of the old capital of the late 11th dynasty in Upper Egypt, loosening their control over the north. In the beginning of the 12th dynasty, the king Amenemhat the first founded the small town of Hutwarit, better known as the Greek name Avaris. There's an actual company with that name in the far north, which grew into a trading center with easy access to the sea and connected both land routes to Sinai and the region of Palestine. We've seen Sinai already. We already know about the synagogues, Sinai. So it says what? The later Egyptian writers depict the Hyksos as brutal conquerors who destroyed Egypt, ransacked the temples, and oppressed the country until it was liberated and unified under the reign of Ahmose of Thebes. And we're going to get into more of that too. So archaeological evidence and records at the time, however, strongly suggested a very different story. The Hyksos, far from cruel conquerors of later histories, admired mustache got my nose itching. Admired Egyptian culture greatly and adopted it as their own. They lived cordially, if not exactly peacefully, which is the mixing, with the government at Thebes until a perceived insult drove the Theban kings to declare war on them, and they were driven out. Ahmose the first victory signaled the end of the second intermediate period and the beginning of the new kingdom. This is where you get your Exodus story of the Israelites leaving. So the Hyksos arrival in Egypt, though, The period is chiefly characterized by the rule of the Hyksos in northern Egypt and to a lesser but significant degree the power of the Nubians in the south. The only reason the Nubians do not factor more in defining the time is because the Egyptian records show a continuity in relations with southern lands, while the Hyksos were unprecedented and were said to have introduced new concepts and ways of life. They brought all of that Mesopotamian information and ways of life over into Egypt, which is why you will have a lot of Egyptian gods and goddesses actually originating in Mesopotamia, right? So that's why I also show the 6000 BC to show you, though, the influence actually started in Africa, then trickled down, over into Asia, and then came back. But when it came back remixed and corrupted. So what was the origin is, it's misconstrued. The message is kind of different. So the identity of the Hyksos remains unknown. Many theories have been advancing, including that they were refugees fleeing from the Aryan invasion in Asia. So they're trying to mainly say that they were the Dravidians. The Aryan invasion theory itself has been discredited, and so has this claim that they were referred by the Egyptians as Asiatics. But this was a term used for anyone beyond the eastern border of the country from the Levant to Mesopotamia. The name most commonly used translate as foreign, as rulers of foreign lands, not people of foreign lands. And some scholars have advanced the claim that they were invaders who landed at Avaris and established a strong center of power. Right? So now, if you study fake news from ancient Egypt, you will consider the Hyksos as a band of nasty, misrodden outsiders who invaded and brutally ruled the Nile Delta until heroic kings expelled them. Sounded like the biblical story. Yeah. In fact, the Hyksos had a more diplomatic impact, contributing to progress in culture, language, military affairs, and even the introduction of the iconic horse and chariot. That's how they're trying to push this Asiatic narrative to basically say, without the Asiatics' information, their knowledge, their lifestyle, civilizations wouldn't have flourished, which is far from the truth, because like I said, it's all remixed. So I'm not really getting so much into this, but yeah, this is repeating everything else that was said. Here more is the Hyksos. So in his epitome of Manetho, Josephus connected the Hyksos with the Jews, but he also calls them Arabs. I will get to that also with Aristotle, because Aristotle also mentions how the Jews come from actual India, but when they're in Palestine, they're called Jews, but outside of Palestine, they're not Jews. They call themselves Kalani. So, where we go? In modern historians, materials found at Tel El Dabs indicate that the Hyksos originated in the Levant. Right? So you have a lot of Hebrew Israelites, nigger brews. They try to tell you they weren't Hyksos, or they don't identify as Hyksos and so forth. If they want to say that they are part of these mythological groups of people, then they are Hyksos. They are Phoenicians. They are Mesopotamians. They are Sumerians. They are all of that in a bag of chips. Right? So let's go. The Hyksos' personal names that they indicate that they spoke a Western Semitic language and may be called for convenience sake Canaanites. Kamos, the last king of the Theban 17th dynasty, refers to Epipe, right, which is right part of the story of Esau, which was the snake, right? So as a chieftain of the retinue. So the retinue was what they called themselves. Let's see if I can jump down to that, because a lot of this will be filibustering. Where we go? Okay, a retinue right here at this picture on the left. a retinue associated to the Hyksos and some Egyptians' inscriptions. The retinue, as you see, will be in the Egyptian text. So trying to speed this up. It's already 12. Damn. We a half hour in? Okay. Alright, so yeah, you could pause this, read it, go into the next. The Canaanites migrated from the Arabian Peninsula and settled in Palestine and built around 200 cities and many temples and forts based on Egyptian archaeological discoveries during the mid-third millennium BCE. This connects a lot of what we already read. So while some other researchers confirm that the presence of the Canaanites date back to 7,000 years ago by tracing the Canaanite antiquities and their ancient cities, such as the most ancient city, Jericho, which is in the Bible, right, or the Hebrew Bible, that still remains to our day, which is considered the most ancient city on earth. Also, there are many cities and villages which still remain to our day, as Ashdod, Gaza, so forth, and some other cities were demolished. However, there are complete agreement that the Canaanites were the first who inhabited this region among the ancient nations and were the first who established a civilization in Palestine. Boom. Why did I put this in here? To give context, yes, to the Canaanites and them being based off of the Egyptians, right? So on to the right, you got the Dejas, right? The Dejas was named by the Egyptians for the northern retinues. So we know as the retinues as the Hyksos, and which are what? The Canaanites. And it is covered from Ashkelon, to Lebanon and inland from as far as Galilee. It is mentioned many times in the battles with Kadesh of the 18th and 19th dynasty of Egypt. Damn. There's a lot of shit. I may have to come back and do another part sometime later. Let's see though. The land of Canaan covered the area of the southern Levant and the southwestern strip of the Fertile Crescent. The borders of the land in Canaan, as described in Egyptian ancient sources such as the Annals of Thutmose III. Now, let's drop down some more. Canaanite trade in the Mediterranean Sea from the Chalcolithic period until the Iron Age. So this is giving you your references to the trade that was going on with the Canaanites and the Egyptians, right? You can pause this and you can read this for yourself, but this is also letting you know, like, they had contact. They made, this wasn't no rulership. This wasn't no enslavement. This was, they were trading. They were coexisting. So here, early scenes of the Canaanite ships in the tomb of Kinamun, right? The road was primarily called the Palestinian Road as a reference to the travel route that passes through the Philistine plains, which today form the southern coastal part of the historic Palestine, especially the Gaza Strip, which we know about the Gaza Strip, right? There's a lot of issues over there. This road was considered, alongside the King's Road, one of the main roads linking ancient Egypt with the Levant, Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and it crossed other trade routes to travel between Europe and Africa, or between Asia and Africa. Come on. We got to stop acting like most of the shit that was going down in history was enslavement, right? People were being enslaved, people were being raped, no, most of this shit was cordial. These, as you've seen the Mesopotamian shit. They was fucking each other on the tablets, right? Dumuzi and Ishtar, Inanna. This is just what they was all about. I mean, love, coexisting, uh, fucking, fucking what's the other word? Procreation. Now we drop into Atmos the First, right? Because when we talk about Atmos the First, we talk about the expulsion of the Hyksos, right? This is what they mention here. So Atmos of Thebes. So Atmos the First, founder of the 18th dynasty, who completed the expulsion of the Hyksos, the Asiatic rulers of Egypt, invaded Palestine and re-exerted Egypt's hegemony over northern Nubia to the south. Resuming the war of liberation against the Hyksos, early in his reign, Ahmose crushed the foreigners' allies in Middle Egypt and, advancing the Nile River, captured Memphis, the traditional capital of Egypt, near present-day Cairo, while his mother, Queen Ahotep, acted as his representative in Thebes. He undertook a waterborne operation against Avaris, the Hyksos capital, in the eastern delta, followed by a land siege. When a rebellion flared in Upper Egypt, he hastened upriver to quell the rising, while Ahotep, his mother, hoped to contain it. Having to put down the rising, he captured Avaris and then pursued the enemy to Sharuhin, a Hyksos stronghold in Palestine, which was reduced after 3-year siege. So he was only taking the people out and then making sure that, he cut the head off the snake. Before advancing into Palestine, at most in 3 campaigns, advancing in Nubia, whose ruler had been ally of the Hyksos, the rich gold mines of the south, provided another incentive for Atmos expansion into Nubia. Now we go into Horemheb, right? Because Ahmose the First is the founder of the 18th dynasty. Then we got the last pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, and he is known as, I'm not gonna butcher that, but Horemheb. His name means Heru or Horus in the festival, and he came from the lower classes of Egypt. He worked himself up through the ranks of the army, became commander-in-chief of the Egyptian military, which is what? Commander-in-chief is a president. And finally, Pharaoh, right, which is president. Little is known about his early life, but it seems that he initially served under Amenhotep III and continued servants under Akhenaten. He first comes to the notice of historians during the reign of Tutankhamun. I forget, you gotta break his name down because it's Tut, like Tahuti, Tut, Ankh, like for life, and the moon, like, the god of moon. So when he acted in the capacity of the advisors to the young king along with the vizier A succeeded Tutankhamun, and on his death, Horemheb took the throne, at which point he initiated a nationwide campaign to erase his immediate predecessors' names from history and revitalize the nation that had declined under Akhenaten's rule. A lot of people look up to Akhenaten, but Akhenaten is a descendant of these Hyksos, descendant of these Asiatics, which is bringing the remixed version of this, of basically his ancestors, but he corrupted the land, he corrupted the people, right? With Atenism and all that other shit that he brought over. So he's generally considered a good pharaoh, but whether he is a hero or a villain depends upon one's view of Akhenaten's reign and Horemheb's reaction to it. So going down here to Akhenaten, just so you have a little overview of who Akhenaten was. He was also Amenhotep the fourth, Greek Amenophis, right? He created the cult Aten, as I mentioned before. Let me see. I think I put it in here to talk about how he basically came from Asia. His peoples come from Asia. I'm not too sure. But you can pause this, read it for yourself. I'm not going through all of this. Here's Ramses the Second, who a lot of people try to attribute to Ramses of the Bible. Alternative spelling Ramses, so forth, was known as the Egyptian, which means keeper of harmony and balance, right? He was Ramses the Great. He was the third pharaoh of the 19th dynasty, who claimed to have won a decisive victory over the Hittites, the Battle of Kadesh, and used this event to enhance his reputation as a great warrior. In reality, the battle was more of a draw than a decisive victory for either side, but resulted in the world's first known peace treaty in 1258 BCE. Let me see how far we into this, because like I said, I know motherfuckers' attention spans, man. Motherfucking shit is short. TikTok, IG, fraud motherfucking shit. So I already know anything over 30 minutes, he's probably pushing it. Anything over an hour, you definitely bugging the fuck out. You know? So I want to try to keep it at least an hour, hour and a half. Damn, the other one was 2 hours, right? Let's see. So, see how long we've been live. See how long we've been live. Says over an hour ago. So we're going to put a bookmark here on 91. Look, we got all the way to 248. We got a lot of work. But it's a lot of ground to cover, and it's a lot of dots to connect. And they all connect, and we connecting everything just to show it's a whole bunch of bullshit, right? People believing in bullshit. Yeah, people, if you believe in any of these belief systems, you believe in bullshit. I'm just being truthful. I'm not being mean. It's just honesty. It is what it is. This is why we go into the root, so you can see where it came from, and you can see the purpose of it. The purpose at first, was to liberate people's minds, to have them have self-awareness. And later on, it was to control people. This is why you had Akhenaten, who got it from his ancestors, where these gods can only talk to these kings and the council of these kings, the visors and so forth. So I'm putting a bookmark here. That being said, be right back. Part 3. Huh?